sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your breakfast bankroll for Friday, July 1st, 2022. The weekend is here, 4th of July weekend. Happy birthday to the US of A. And today we are blessed. We are honored for a special guest who is making his debut. First of many, 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 live in Vegas, currently at the Wynn. Zayd Hussein will be breaking down Saturday's UFC 276 card from T-Mobile. He reached out to us. We connected a few months ago, and now, boom, he is ready for the prime time. And sporting a special shirt, as yesterday he was able to land and get right over to the Sahara and meet our two good friends, Mr. Matt Peralta and Dave Sharapan, as he was there for the live event. And it's going to be a good time. Grab your pens, grab your pencils, grab a cup of Joe or whatever you need to wake up, because this kid is going to be bringing the heat, and he's got a lot of leans. He's got some great breakdowns, some props, and ready to cash some tickets this weekend. So without further ado, let's bring him into our studio, the one and only Mr. Zayd Hussein.
How you doing, Jeff?
Good morning, Zayd. How are you?
Good morning. Honored to be on here. Thank you for having me on today.
We couldn't be happier. We connected months and months ago. I think it was on Memorial Day weekend, and we were going to do something then, and it was a holiday weekend, and here we are back again at a holiday weekend. You land in Vegas yesterday. You go right to where you needed to go, to the Sahara at the pool. You meet up with Dave and Matt is debuting his Just the Picks podcast, and there you are sporting it. Before we dig into the card, how was yesterday? How was it with the boys? How was it poolside?
Oh, it was a great time. 104 degrees. I think Dave was about to burn up there mid-show, and the guys were great. We had a good time. The Kevin Durant breaking news took place yesterday, requesting the trade. We had a lot of fun chatting about that, and it was a good time. A nice show up for all the crowd, and we had a good time over there.
So you're at the Wynn right now. It's Friday morning. It's bright and early, and you got another full day to kind of take the card in, and then obviously Saturday night at T-Mobile, a big card. Obviously the main event. Israel, a real big favorite. But talk about, before we dig into the card, your assessment from start to finish for the novice, for someone that's just looking like, hey, I'm bored Friday night, but I want to buy the fight. What should I be looking for?
Definitely. Well, I'll tell you what you shouldn't be looking for to start. The main event, like you said, Israel Adesanya, he's been steamed up so high. It's not even worth touching the main event right now. He's at minus 520 currently on FanDuel, with Cannonier on the comeback at plus 350. Overall, this fight is if you're a fan of Izzy and you're looking to bet, it's not a good bet to make. You should not lay this minus 520. Cannonier is a fighter that's very, very dangerous. He fought at heavyweight in his past. He possesses knockout power. And he's someone that I'm not laying that big of a chalk taking Izzy when Cannonier's a very dangerous fighter. So overall, something that I'm not looking for, the main event. Make sure you stay away from that. Now, other fights. This is a huge card. You got Volkanovski versus Max Holloway. This is now the third fight in their classic matches. 2 razor-close decisions in the first 2 fights. This is a fight that I'm looking at as something that's going to be fireworks and maybe different. Just a whole preview to give you kind of a nice rundown. Sugar Sean O'Malley, huge superstar, coming in at minus 350 right now. Steamed up again, just like Izzy. I feel like all the favorites are just being bet, and those lines are just jumping up. There's starting to be value on fighters earlier in the week where you saw, hey, this guy was plus 200, now he's plus 250. Maybe it's worth throwing a half a unit on him just because it's been steamed up so high. Sean Strickland, Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira is a person that's knocked Izzy out. Israel Adesanya, the current champion of the world. Sean Strickland is fighting him this weekend. Another fight to take a look at that we have this weekend in the prelims. Donald Cerrone, Jim Miller. This fight is taking place last minute, kind of put together after the Cerrone fight fell out earlier in the week. We have Cerrone at plus 162, Jim Miller at minus 210. This is a fight that's very interesting to me that we'll be covering today. Ian Gary making another appearance on Saturday, not tonight, I should say, against Gabe Green, minus 184. This is a fight that I'm looking at as well. Macy Barber, minus 310 against Jessica Ai. There's so many fights, so many good fights this weekend, and I'm just ready to jump in and get to work.
You talked about the Cerrone fight. I was a big fan of Cerrone. I guess I will say a handful of years ago, and I think his last handful of fights, he's just been in there, and I don't want to say taking a beating, but he just like again, just thrown in again. He's plus 150, 160. Is it fair for me being the outsider when it comes to the UFC, saying obviously his past days are well behind him and he's kind of collecting checks here?
100%. I think it's sad, but it's true. Donald Cerrone, he's had a lot of damage in his career. I mean, you look at the fighters that he's fought, and he's been in wars, and it's been tough for him. His last two fights against Joe Lozon were scheduled for UFC 274, UFC Fight Night, Cater versus Emmett, and they both fell through. He pulled out one fight, and Lozon pulled out one fight. And he's been making weight these last two times, and now he's coming in against Jim Miller, who, is a veteran in the game as well, but he's still got a lot of spring in his step. We saw him compete and have a couple wins, recently. Jim Miller's the guy that went out and most recently just won by TKO in the second round of the Dos Anjos Fiziev fight, UFC Fight Night. Overall, this is a fight card and fight where you look at Jim Miller and you say, okay, he's minus 210 and Cerrone's plus 168. You can't bet Cerrone here, just given how old he is. This is possibly his last fight. He mentioned this week that he wants to fight 3 more times, but we don't really see that happening this weekend. And I love Cerrone, but it's sad. His time is basically coming up now.
Okay. So what we're going to do here, we're going to make this easy on you. I'm not going to take the card from bottom to top. There's so many fights. And as you said, a lot of the favorites are getting steamed. And it's like if someone just picked up the card on Monday and blindly threw some darts on some of the favorites, that's fine. But when these things are getting steamed up $50, $75, it makes it hard for the novice outside looking in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the card to you, and you take it from wherever you want to go. Fight, props, leans, however you can advise everyone watching here how you would bet these.
For sure. Now, I'll just kick off right away. Like I said, I mentioned the main event is just a place I just don't want any action. I don't want any money down in the main event. Adesanya was minus around 350 a week and a half ago, and now he's minus 520. It's a fight I'm just staying away from. One of my favorite bets of the week, I think, has a lot of value. Some people may disagree with me. The co-main event, you take a look at Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. The current total round prop is under 4.5 rounds at plus 192. It came down a little bit from plus 205 last night. This is a fight, I think you take a look at both fighters. Volkanovski and Holloway recently just had their last 2 fights, obviously. Both fights were such razor-close decisions. You saw Holloway thinking he won the fight. You saw Volkanovski thinking he won the fight. The fans split up. They're going to make a statement, one or the other. They're going to look to put the pressure on. They're going to look to say, hey, you know what? We're not bringing this one to the scorecard. We're not going to have this problem again. We're going to fight. We're going to pressure each other. And we saw Max Holloway hinted to it this week at the press conference. This fight, he said, will not go past 3 rounds. I tend to agree with these guys. I think we saw Max Holloway get hit a lot in his last fight against Yair Rodriguez. Volkanovski's been coming off his greatest performance of all time, I would say, for him against the Korean Zombie. He's hitting harder. He's evolving in his game. Overall, this is a fight where Holloway's going to bring the pressure, Volkanovski's going to bring the pressure, and somebody could get put out early. I love taking the under 4.5 rounds in this fight. It's at plus 192 right now. I think it will go down even more, and to lock it in right now is something that I do. I also locked in Volkanovski minus 180 earlier in the week. It's now at minus 215. Volkanovski, I think, is the best fighter in the world right now. Alexander Volkanovski. I don't say that often about fighters, obviously, because there's one best fighter in the world. Alexander Volkanovski has the ability to do anything on fight night. He can grapple, he can strike, he has the cardio, he has the chin. And overall, Volkanovski against a Korean zombie, we saw him just destroy him. We saw against Ortega, he got put in a guillotine. He was able to get out. This guy on the ground and on the feet is just at another level right now. And I think against Max Holloway, beating him twice and coming in on this third fight, he's going to have the advantage here. And I'd lay up to minus 215 what it's at right now for a unit.
Okay. So that is basically the co-main event and the main event. Going from top to bottom, where do you see your eyes going next?
Next, now taking a look from top to bottom, we have Sean Strickland against Alex Pereira. Sean Strickland made a huge show yesterday. I don't know if you saw the press conference. Strickland was going at the champ and going at everybody. This is a very, very interesting fight to me because this fight last night was at minus 110 pick'em. It's been around to pick'em the whole week, the whole month, and so many people have different opinions. I think when you take a look at this fight, this is a fight where Strickland, he could look like a heavy, heavy favorite in this fight if he implements his grappling. Alex Pereira is someone that's been controlled in the octagon. He comes from Glory Kickboxing. He knocked out Israel Adesanya, I mentioned earlier on the show. He can be out-wrestled here. I think Sean Strickland, while people think, oh, he got a couple loose screws or this guy's crazy and everybody sees, he's a very smart fighter. He has a high fight IQ. Sean Strickland could take this fight to the ground and I think dominate on the ground. And he could look very good here. He could look upwards to minus 300 in my eyes. So right now he is at minus 122. I think this is worth a bet. You may be able to get it a little cheaper if you wait before the fight. But overall, Sean Strickland is a fighter that I'm locking in this weekend. I think he's going to be able to implement the wrestling. He's not going to just stand there and strike with Alex Pereira. He's going to take him to the ground. I think he ground and pounds, maybe a 30-27 victory. Overall, I'm all over Sean Strickland this weekend. I think he's going to be able to implement his wrestling in a very good way.
I'm looking at Don Best right now, and I can see where you're saying it was basically a pick'em, and right now at South Point, he's minus 125, Westgate minus 120. Where you are at the win, where are we here? At the win, minus 110. So you can run down to the book at the win, and you can get him at the cheapest right now at minus 110.
Yes, I really like this fight. This is going to be a very interesting fight. And then, as we saw in the press conference, Strickland wins this fight. He's fighting for the title, so it's something very interesting. This is probably my favorite fight to watch out for this weekend, Sean Strickland, Alex Pereira. Now, moving on to the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley versus Pedro Munoz. This is my second best bet of the card. This is a fight that's also been steamed. Sean O'Malley right now is at minus 350 on FanDuel. And this is a fight I think is very interesting when you take a look at Sean O'Malley as a fighter and Pedro Munoz as a fighter. Pedro Munoz is a fighter that has not been finished in his career. He's 1-4 in his last 5 fights, but every fight coming by a decision loss. He's a fighter that's very durable, a fighter that's not just going to go in there and get knocked out like people think. Sean O'Malley's fought weaker opponents in the past where he's been able to put them away. I think Sean O'Malley's going to have difficulty putting him away. And overall, right now at minus 350, it's not a price I want to lay. But when looking at props in this fight, I see O'Malley by decision at plus 170. And Pedro Munoz, like I mentioned, never been finished in his career. Sean O'Malley is going to look to use his range and just pepper him with strikes. I think he's going to have a lot of volume here. It's a 3-round fight. He's going to be able to, I think, cruise to a 30-27 decision, maybe 29-28. Overall, I think instead of laying a minus 350 on Sean O'Malley like the general public will, you can take him at decision, which I think is his most likely method of victory and fight outcome.
So you can get him right now by decision at plus 170?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, it beats minus 350, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm not laying no minus 350 right here, but I definitely his path to victory being by decision. Just like I said, Munoz is a very durable fighter, and he's fought some of the best fighters in the world. You saw him fight Cody Garbrandt in his prime when he wasn't no Cody Garbrandt that was washed. He's fought guys that are very strong, and he should be able to last here. It's a 3-round fight. He's durable, and I like O'Malley by the points. Now moving on to Robbie Lawler, Brian Baramba. Lawler right now is minus 125. I think this fight was at a pick'em earlier in the week, if I'm not mistaken. Lawler may be a slight favorite. Robbie Lawler is a very old fighter. We saw him against Nick Diaz. He didn't look strong. Both fighters just looked washed. And I think in this fight, it's going to be the same way. This is a fight that, to me at least, it's a pass. You don't know where Robbie Lawler is going to be. You don't know where Brian's going to be. Overall, I'm not laying something on these two fighters that are older, past their prime, can get touched up. Anything could happen here. And this is just a pass at all for me, with the line being basically a pick 'em. I'm not looking to lay any money down on this fight at all.
Okay.
I don't know. What's your opinion on Robbie Lawler? Are you a Robbie Lawler guy, big fan, or?
Yeah, it's funny as you're breaking these down. Okay, the way my eyes read the market, and it's UFC. All right, at some point, you're sitting there, you're there in the prelims, and the favorites are coming in, and then you get to to the meat and potatoes, and the favorites are still coming in, and you're sitting there scratching your head. You're like, all right, we know a dog's coming. And then that's the Jedi mind tricks. Where's this dog coming from? And it's the one that you don't expect. So I've been looking at this one here. He's got 29-15 versus 17-8. Like you said, it was a pick 'em. And as you're seeing, as they were getting closer to fight time, all the favorites are getting steamed. So if I had to throw a hat in the ring, I know it's a short dog, but a plus 105, maybe you get a plus 110. I'd probably be leaning towards more the dog on this fight.
I agree. It's both fighters are, I would say, past their prime, the dog being maybe a little fresher, but even the dog, he took a lot of damage in his career. He's coming off a lot of surgeries. Both guys are not 100% coming into this fight. I could definitely say that for a fact. And it's something I do not want my money on at all.
It's a good fight to go to the beer line. How's that sound?
Yep, 100%. But there's going to be action, so you never know. I think someone might go to sleep here, So we'll see how it goes. Now let's move on to the prelims. My favorite fight of the night. I have so many favorite fights. I just keep saying favorite fight of the night, favorite fight of the night. This card is insane. Brad Riddell, Jalen Turner. Brad Riddell is a fighter that comes from City Kickboxing. He has two teammates on this card, being Alexander Volkanovski and Israel Adesanya. Brad Riddell has so much kickboxing experience in his career overall, and he's fighting a fighter, Jalen Turner, that's on a little bit of a streak right now. He has a couple finishes. Riddell fought with Israel Adesanya. He fought with Volkanovski in this camp. He's been training and sparring with all these great fighters. We saw Olberg last week get a finish from City Kickboxing as well. This team overall has had a lot of fighters, a lot of fights coming up. Their gym is rolling right now. And Brad Riddell is a fighter I like. I think we saw this at a pick'em about a week and a half ago. Right now, you could get Brad Riddell at plus 125 to plus 130 range, depending on the book that you're at. I love Brad Riddell on the spot. I love the underdog. While he doesn't have the range, he's going to be the shorter fighter. I think he's going to be able to pressure Jalen Turner, leg kicks, volume. I think he's able to take him out here. I think this is a fight that's going to show a lot of fireworks. I like the under here, and I like Brad Riddell in this fight. I'm going to give you the live odds for the under 1.5 at plus 116, and Brad Riddell at plus 130 for a unit each is what I'm laying my money on.
Okay, I'm in.
100%. And Brad Riddell, I mean, let me give you just an idea of how many kickboxing matches this man had. Overall, he has 59 victories in kickboxing. So he's a fighter that's very experienced. We saw him in the cage. He has grappling upside as well. He's going to be able to take Jalen Turner down, and I think he's a spot here. Moving on now to our next fight. We have Ian Gary versus Gabe Green. Ian Gary coming in at minus 184. We saw him at around minus 175 earlier in the week. Steamed up a little bit as we said, all the favorites just getting bet and moved. Ian Gary's a fighter that I will look to fade in the future. I will not look to fade tonight. Or Saturday night, I should say. Gary is is a counter striker. He's gonna move around. He's gonna touch you up. Gabe Green's durable, but overall, I think they're just feeding this guy, lower echelon type of fighters, just so he could build up more wins. We saw him fight weak competition early on in his career. I think this is more weak competition. Look for him to step up in competition with a win here, and then maybe look to fade him. But at minus 184, I'm staying away from this fight. I'm not gonna lay it, but it's just too big for me right now. Minus 175 earlier in the week, I didn't like it. Now I don't even like it even more. This is a pass, a dog or pass for me, which I think you have to pass.
Okay.
We got Macy Barber versus Jessica I next. Macy Barber coming in at minus 310. Jessica I on the flip side plus 230. Macy Barber is a fighter I will never lay minus 310 on in my life. Never. Absolutely not. Just I can't do it. She lost as a huge favorite. I remember a few years ago to Roxanne Montefero. She, I think, was around minus 850, and she lost that fight. It was like one of the biggest upsets we saw in a while for the UFC back then. Jessica I is a dangerous fighter. Macy Barber, we always look for her. She claims to be the future. We always look for her to take that step up, and I just haven't seen it yet. Macy Barber is not a person I'm going to lay minus 310 on. On the flip side, Jessica I think, is live at plus 230 in this fight, but overall, Macy Barber is someone that's maybe she could wrestle her, take her down, but her striking is not where I want it to be at, and I'm not going to lay minus 310 chalk on Macy Barber at all.
Is that a fight? What's the under over on that fight?
The over under live odds right now are under 2.5 at plus 250, over 2.5 at minus 350. This fight is basically going to go the distance. I think it could be a snooze fest. Maybe Macy takes her down and lays on her and just a little bit of ground and pound here and there, but overall, I think this is a dog or pass situation for me. I'm not going to lay the minus 310 on Macy Barber.
And something, I really like how you're phrasing that, especially for the novice. So people, again, that are looking to get in a little action over the weekend. I love the phrase dog or pass, because the way a lot of the public or the degens are wired is they see the big favorites, therefore they're automatically going to win. And what ends up usually happening is you put together 3, 4, 5, 6-legged parlays with all the chalk, and you're hoping to get plus money. And as we know, one of the big favorites most likely will go down. So by emphasizing, hey, this is a fight, yeah, I see why she's favored, but it's a dog or pass. At least you're enlightening the public and the people to say, hey, guys, just because they're minus 300, or as you said earlier, they were minus 225 to start the week. Now they're steamed up to 300, 325. That doesn't mean you go run to the window and follow the steam.
100%. And you hit it on the head. You see the general public just, hey, this person's minus 350, Adesanya minus 525, this person minus that, and throw it in a parlay for $500 to try to get almost even money. You can't do that with the UFC. Maybe you could do that with other sports, the NBA, NFL. The UFC, you cannot do that. Every single dog is live in a fight. And overall, we see, like you said, one of these fighters that are big favorites are going to lose in a card. Every favorite is not going to win. So the dog or pass is something that I use, and we all use here in the community as, what, do not lay that chalk on that person. Make sure to just find other value somewhere else. And in the general public right now, if you're just a regular person going and watching the fights, you're going to see Macy Barber minus 310, like you said, and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to bet on Macy Barber. Just do not do it. Dog or pass here, 100%.
I love it.
Okay, now let's, just jump into the next fight. Uriah Hall versus Andre Muniz. Muniz minus 350. He was around minus 300 earlier in the week. Uriah Hall, veteran in the sport, has been around for a long, long time. I think Hall's a little bit over his bridge past his prime, but this is another dog or pass scenario for me, unfortunately. I can't lay minus 300 plus on someone against Uriah Hall, especially, younger fighter, older fighter. Uriah Hall has more experience. This is a fight for me, dog or pass. Uriah Hall still has knockout power. He could get ground and pound dominated, but, I'm not going to lay chalk to find that out this weekend when I have better spots on the card. Moving on now to Jim Miller, Donald Cerrone. We covered that earlier. Jim Miller minus 210, Cerrone on the flip side plus 162 right now on FanDuel. Jim Miller's a very dangerous fighter. He's coming off a couple victories. He has wins, losses, up and down, but Donald Cerrone has been a roller coaster. And just to give you kind of an idea, Donald Cerrone hasn't competed for a very, very long time. Let me give you just the exact date. Sorry, here, phone just dropped. 1 second. Donald Cerrone is coming off of 5 straight losses and hasn't had a win since 2019 Ally Quinta. So overall, he has fought the best of the best. I mean, Donald Cerrone's been thrown to the wolves. Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje, Conor McGregor, Anthony Pettis, Alex Morono. Donald Cerrone is someone, like you said earlier, is past his prime. Jim Miller, if you want to throw bring down, if you're doing a two-leg or three-leg parlay, throw Jim Miller in there at minus 210. I think Cerrone is just washed up now, unfortunately. And as a fan of his, I want to see him fight this. If he somehow gets a win, great. But if not, just call it a career, do some things post UFC, and have some fun.
I agree 100% there.
Moving on to the Brad Tavares. I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Driscoll Duplessis. Brad Tavares plus 128. Duplessis minus 164 current odds. This is a straight pass for me on this fight. Both fighters experienced. Brad Tavares has a lot of experience in the cage. I think when you take a look at this fight overall, it's priced close and rightfully so. Both fighters have a lot of experience in the cage. Brad Tavares 19-7, Duplessis 16-2. Brad Tavares being the older fighter at 34. I think you go with the younger fighter here, but I don't think you lay minus 164 on it. To me, it's a pass, and it's one of the first fights on the card. I'm not a fan of it. I'm gonna pass here. I have no strong read here, and I'm not gonna tell the public, hey, bet here or bet here when I don't have a strong read. And then lastly, I'm gonna butcher this again. Julian J. Storlienko against Jessica Rose Clark. This is a fight where Rose Clark opened up at minus 120, got steamed to minus 180, and I was settling at minus 162. Rose Clark, I felt like, was the side early on. If you got in early, congrats. You got a lot of closing line value here. But at minus 162, the line kind of tightened up. I liked Rose Clark and leaned Rose Clark earlier here, but with the line being steamed up a little bit, it's obviously Rose Clark a pass, but I feel bad laying a minus 162 when I could have had minus 120 a week ago. So I think you pass here, and I like Rose Clark as the side if you just need some degen action.
Okay, so before we close up here, when you take into these cards, I have odds all the way through to January 1st, some of the big fights or potential big fights. I have to ask you something. I've been following Amanda Nunes forever. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I've never seen a closer so dominant as her. In other words, when she knows she hurt you, you're all done. Whether it was I'm drawing a blank here. The sensation there that she just pounded. God,
Chris Cyborg? That was like
before the Cyborg, who basically her last.
Ronda Rousey?
Rousey, exactly. Yeah. So Rousey comes in and the whole world steamed the crap out of her, and they get in there, and then all of a sudden she hit her, and you knew she was hurt. That was it. And then Cyborg again favored, and then she gets hurt, she gets stunned, done. And then not too long ago we watched Nunes finally lose, and I'm watching and I'm following her on IG. Now, this isn't fair to say it this way. Everything is nothing now on her IG but advertisements, sponsoring this. I don't see the drive. I don't see the passion. I don't see the I'm getting my belt back. Now, again, I'm the outsider looking in. Am I seeing this the right way or am I seeing it the wrong way?
You hit it 100% on the head. 100%. This sport is a sport where you got to be hungry. It's a young man sport, not an old man sport. And once you've accomplished, take a look at Conor McGregor. Okay, Conor McGregor goes on. He's dominant. He's arguably one of the greatest fighters of all time. He becomes a double champ, knocks out Jose Aldo in 13 seconds, goes on, dominates Eddie Alvarez for the 155 belt, then goes on and fights Floyd Mayweather and makes $100 million and comes back against Khabib. He trained against Khabib, trained hard. People think, he just made the money and just he went off. That was a huge fight for him, and he did train hard. Khabib obviously is just another animal. But after that, we just saw him fall off. Why did we see him fall off? The money, the fame. He's not hungry anymore. Like they say, you wake up with silk sheets in a bed in a mansion versus a guy that's not rich, doesn't have it all. The challenger, the hungry contender, waking up in a small house trying to provide for his family. He's all in, all in. I saw a TikTok literally yesterday. Conor McGregor talking. It was before his Aldo fight. He talked about how Aldo has a family and he got people to look after and people to attend to. And McGregor, a young Conor McGregor saying how, this is all I have for me. This is all me. It's fight, it's train, it's go home. There is no family. There is no outsiders. There's no distractions. I'm all in here. And Aldo's not. And like you mentioned, you have to be all in the sport. And I think if you're not all in, you're going to pay the price. And we saw it with Conor McGregor. He comes back, loses to Poirier. He gets beat up by Poirier again, breaks his leg. But, overall, we knew how that fight was going. Dustin Poirier was dominating that fight, And I think in the UFC and in sports in general, if you're not hungry, especially the fight game, you're done. It's just you need the drive, you need the power, and if you don't have it, you're done.
So when is that rematch supposed to happen?
Between Amanda Nunes and Julia Pena?
Yeah.
Let me give you the exact date. Very soon, though. Very, very soon. Just off the top of my head, let me see. July 30, UFC 277. Yeah.
And do you have any current odds on that fight right now?
Let me give that to you right now. Current odds. Got to load here. 1 second. My bad.
No, you're fine.
Okay, I need a guess from you first. What do you think this line is at right now?
Okay, so if I remember correctly, Nunes, the first fight was, I think, -3 or 400. And just from the outside looking in, I mean, I know she's going to get all the hype. She's going to get all the steam. I don't want to get crushed on the Nunes side because it doesn't matter. It's like Conor. It doesn't matter who's Conor's fighting. You're going to get that side. You're going to get the Amanda side. Even though she's not the champ, I think she's still going to be favored. I'll say Nunes -180.
You're pretty close. The first fight, she was 7-1 favorite. So Pena was around +700. Nunes -290. Pena, on the other hand, +235. Nunes, I mean, man, that fight was just – I was in awe watching that fight because I feel like everything we saw about Amanda Nunes in the past, her striking, her conditioning, her power, it just wasn't there, and she was just getting touched up. I'm just sitting there looking at the screen like, wow, is this really happening right now? Like, that was one of the most shocking upsets I've seen in probably MMA history.
I agree 100%. And again, I am not the expert. That's why I'm having you on, and I hope to have you on a lot more with your breakdowns. Just the outsider looking in, and for me, in my lanes, I can see steam. Listen, if I want steam, I'll go boil a pot of water. I'll go to my local dry cleaner, because when you follow steam 9 out of 10 times, you're going to get burnt. And in your lanes, especially, a lot of people don't know all this inside information. Who's hurt, who's not hurt, who's been training great, who's kind of just mailing this one in for a paycheck. But you're just following the steam, saying, well, they must know something, therefore I got to follow the steam.
100%. And like you mentioned, you know who's in camp long, you know who's not, you know who's taking this fight for money, who's taking this fight to win. And like I mentioned with the city kickboxing team, okay, when you have Israel Adesanya, champion of the world, Alexander Volkanovski, champion of the world, and then you got Brad Riddell, all these fighters, so many fighters fighting at the same time, their camp and their team is going to be on. Everything's going to be spot on. All these guys are going to be training with each other. They're going to be helping each other for their fights. And a guy like Brad Riddell, who I mentioned earlier, who's one of my favorite bets of the weekend at plus money, you see him fighting a longer, lengthier, rangy fighter. You have Israel Adesanya to spar with, who's one of the best strikers in the world, and a guy that's long and lengthy and can give you looks against what you're going to see against Jalen Turner. So overall, when you look at fighters that are in camp, especially a guy like Brad Riddell, training with two champions, training with one of the best teams in the world, I like repping those guys that I know that have been in camp for a long time, that he's coming off a loss, which he's fought a guy in the division, top tier guy, Rafael Fiziev, but before that was rolling, those fighters that are coming off a loss, that are still hungry, that are training hard and ready to win.
Zayd Hussein, I've had the crawler going the whole time. Can be followed obviously on Twitter at Zayd_Hussein. You can catch his work at SportsGrid TV, at Fansided. As we always close here, tell the people where they can follow you, tell you where you'll be obviously this weekend in Vegas. We're all jealous as hell about your work and where they can catch all your work.
For sure. So right now you can find me on TikTok and, like you mentioned, on Twitter at Zayd_Hussein. I'm going to be posting a lot of TikTok content. I will be going live from SportsGrid's Instagram fight night. I'll be cage side there watching the fights. Make sure to tune in on SportsGrid's Instagram, and we're going to have a great time and a great night of fights, hopefully this Saturday. Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And we can't thank you enough. So everyone, go follow Zayd. Make sure you get over to TikTok and Instagram on SportsGrid. He will be live on Fight Night tomorrow. Currently at the Wynn, soaking up the sun in a cool Vegas at a buck 105 at 9 o'clock in the morning. So everyone, thank you so much for watching and listening. I will be back at 2:30 with Dan Alexander from Premier Lacrosse. Bet on Lacrosse. We'll be breaking down week 5, I think it is, in Premier Lacrosse. And then myself and Scotty Webb will be back at 4:30 for the closing bell. And always remember this, people. If you are wagering or investing today, please do it responsibly. If you do have a problem, pick up the phone. There is an 800 number. Ask for help. Why? Myself and Zayd care. We want to see you here today, tomorrow, next week, next month, through 2022 and beyond. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Zayd Hussein at Zayd_Hussein, we wish everyone a blessed morning and have an amazing 4th of July weekend.